guys, it's Kristina here, and today I thought I would do something totally different. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm wearing a hat and I'm indoors, I don't usually wear hats indoors, obviously, but my hair is literally a mess right now. I don't even want to talk about it. Some of you might not think so, but to me it's like, I don't know what to do with it, so I just shoved on a beanie and I'm about to just film this video. By the way, I'm using a new pair of lashes. I forgot what they're called. I'm gonna leave them on the screen. I really like them. They're like different than the usual ones that I wear, and I haven't worn lashes in a bit, so yeah, I just was like really wanting to try these out, and I was like, no, I'm gonna film a video, I'm gonna wear my new lashes. And I kept my eyebrows super natural, by the way. Don't know how I feel about them yet, just because I haven't had them done in a while, because I wanted them to grow naturally out, because I haven't had them like thick in a while. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling on. This video is, if you read the title, then you would know what it's about. It's about the Zodiac killer. I personally have such a fascination with not just this case, or this specific killer. I have a fascination with like a lot of different serial killers. Just a healthy fascination. I'm not talking like fascination like crazy fascination, you know what I mean? I'm talking like I'm just really interested in these cases because personally I haven't heard of a serial killer in a while. Like you just don't hear about them as much as you used to. So this case actually was one of the first cases that I've ever really learned about and really heard about. The first one that I heard about was Jack the Ripper, which, by the way, if you want to see a whole video on that, because that is a fascination of mine as well. It's the first case I've ever heard about when it comes to serial killers. Then let me know down below because I would definitely film that if you guys want that. But I did a lot of research, and by the way, I want to put a quick disclaimer out there. I feel like usually people, they feel like they have to give this disclaimer, which I just want to put it out there because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I'm just taking information that I found on the internet and compiling it into one video that I'm talking about. There are many videos on this. If you want, I can link a few that I've seen down below. There's like literally like a serial killer's documentary channel, which is where I got some of the information that I'm going to be talking about, especially the cases. I don't have specifics because it would make this video extremely long. I don't want to get into that. Anyways, I'm rambling on. Let me just get into the video. So the first case of the Zodiac killer actually happened in November of I love how I'm waving my pen. The first case actually happened on November in 1968 in Vallejo, California. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. And this case really is what started it all, from just everything that was starting to happen. And it was the first time that a serial killer, at least in this area, was really just intelligent, and he was very egotistical. I mean, I'll get into why he's egotistical, but let me just talk about the case first and then it'll make a little more sense. So in Vallejo, California in 1968 of November that year, there were two teenagers, 17-year-old David Paraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen. And what ended up happening is that, don't really know the specific name of the place, I'll leave it on the screen, and they were just in the car normal, and this was around 11 p.m. and the Zodiac, but at the time he wasn't known as that, he walked up to them with a flashlight in his hand and a gun in his hand, a .22 caliber gun, walked up to them, shot David behind the ear, and he was still like alive until he died in the hospital, like as he arrived to the hospital. And Betty ran a few feet, and then he chased after her and shot her 5 times after she ran, and she died on impact. And this case really shocked people because it was one of those things where you didn't hear about serial killers as a lot, and you didn't think it would be a serial killer case. You just think, oh, it's a one incident. And then just 7 months after that happened, there was another case. There was another shooting, and it happened again in Vallejo, California on July 4th, 1969. And it happened on like the same area, and a police officer heard a 911 call and rushed as they were driving like on the highway itself. And they found a man, like a young man, who was shot around his neck, around his face. They weren't sure where he was shot. That's how bad it was. And I'm not gonna show pictures in this video. If you like, I'm not gonna show pictures of like bodies and stuff because that's just disrespectful. And if you want to look at it, if you really want to look at it, I mean, I don't suggest you look at it. I'm not telling you should, but it's out there, I think. I mean, I've seen a few photos during the documentary, but that's as far as I'm going to look for that. Then along with that, there was like, he was outside of the car, he was in the back, and inside the car was a female on the windshield area of the car in the front, and she had multiple shots in her back. And it was crazy to think about because they weren't able to identify 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin, who was dead. And what made this case specifically a huge deal was the amount of information they were given from the victim himself, a young man by the name of Mike Mizzou. He was 19 at the time, and what he said was that they had went to the springs, like there's springs by the area that they were. They went there and then they pulled their car up, and then as they slowed down, there was a car coming behind them that pulled up and stopped right behind their car. And he stepped out and claimed to be a cop. We don't know if that's true or not, because what I was insinuating, like what I got from the video is that they're insinuating that it wasn't a cop, but they're not sure, because it could be someone pretending to be a cop, it can be a former cop, it can be just someone of authority, pretty much. And he started shooting at them. Like, he said something that Mike wasn't able to understand, and he started shooting at them. And Darlene was shot. When Mike climbed in the back of the car, he realized that Darlene was being shot at, and she got shot and she died pretty much. And it's so sad to like see. And what was crazy is that after he left, even though he had shot Mike, he came back. He walked to his car and came back. I don't think he even reached his car before he turned around, shot each of the two young people twice. And instead of using a .22 caliber, he used a 9mm slug. So that was really why the two cases weren't connected at the time. Like, the most connection was just the fact that it was a gun that was used, it was two people, a male and a female, and it was in a car and it was a similar area. That's all that they had. But because the weapon wasn't the same, that's why they never really put it together. And then something crazy happened. The person who did this called in. The Zodiac killer, who was known as the Vallejo killer at the time, called in and reported the murders. He described the murders, and then he said, by the way, I'm the one that did it. And that was a big deal entirely. And all he did was say goodbye in like a taunting tone, like a know-it-all kind of tone. And that's why people say he's very egotistical, because he feels like he can get away with it, which honestly, if we're thinking about it in that way, he kind of did, because we still don't know who he is. He's unknown. He could be either someone who's still alive or who isn't. We don't really know. We have a few suspects that I will get into later on in the video, but that's crazy to think about, is that he literally called the police and told them that it was him and hung up. And the reason why you might be saying, well, what about evidence, like DNA evidence, whatnot? And they went to the phone booth that he called from, because it was older times before his cell phones were around. He only had like phone booths that were really around, and it was only a couple blocks from the police station where he called from. I think it was like 4 or 5 blocks. And that's insane to think about, because imagine you were a cop driving down, passing him as he's telling another cop inside the station that he is the Zodiac. That to me blows my mind. And obviously now, like, there's a lot more, just first of all, there's no phone booths that you can use. We have cell phones which are able to track us and know exactly, like, if someone was to do something like this, we'd have a better chance at tracking. Hence why I think we don't really hear about serial killers, in the sense of like, we don't know who they are, if that makes sense. Anyways, going back to what I was talking about. When they got that phone call, that's when they made the connection, because he called and said that he was the one who killed those 2 teenagers, Betty and David, back in 1968. And that is when the police actually connected the 2 cases, and they really started to really think about the character of this person. And I'm not going to talk about all the cases, but there are a few, and there are some that still aren't really, like, we don't know for sure if they're Zodiac, they're suspected to be. And what's crazy is that Mike was able to give a description of the killer. He said that it was a white male who was kind of stocky, and he was 5'8" with brown curly hair. Now this was like the most you're gonna get out of the description. I mean, he was wearing a mask that like kind of covered his face area. That was the best that they can go with at the time. So now moving on to something that really changed the case, and it's debatable whether it was actually from the Zodiac or if it was someone that wanted to make this a bigger thing. A lot of people suspect that it's a cop. I don't know personally if I feel like it is. I'll leave the video talking about it, like where someone talks about it. I'll leave a video down below where I heard someone bringing up the fact that it could be a cop that wrote these letters. But the letters that I'm talking about are actually when we reach San Francisco, California in August 1st, 1969. So only just less than a month after that whole incident with the phone call. The letters were received from Vallejo, and this happened in San Francisco, from the Vallejo killer, and it details every single killing that he did to each victim, and at the end he signs it with this symbol, which is known as the Zodiac now. I don't know if at the time it was, but like if it was a symbol that represented Zodiac as in general, but that's how he became the Zodiac killer. He proved that this was actually him. If we're thinking that this is actually the person that wrote the letters is actually the Zodiac, him detailing it is definitely proof that this person knew details, like in-depth details of each case. And what's crazy is that if they didn't publish this letter, if they didn't give him attention, he said he would go on a killing spree. Now, I don't exactly know if they decided to publish it right away or if they waited. They didn't really talk about that in the documentary. But then, along with that came I'll put it up here. It looks kind of like hieroglyphics, a little bit, but I feel like it pertains specifically to him. Now, we talk about him being egotistical, right? So pretty much no one can figure out what the symbols meant. And one day, a teacher, like a regular teacher, and his wife, they were just in their kitchen and they were like trying to figure it out, you know? This became a case that was just very popular. And his name was Duddle and Betty Hardin. Or dude, I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry. But yeah, pretty much they figured it out because he was like to his wife, he was like, he's very self-centered, he's very egotistical. Again, the word egotistical comes in mind. And the symbol, the first symbol should be I, and then as you go along, you just look for just kind of process of elimination using the killer's, like, what you know about the killer, pretty much. And the message was something like, I like killing because killing people is the most dangerous game in the world. That is crazy to me, because for someone to think that taking another person's life is a game, that's just, I mean, it's not something that I would be surprised about, but for someone to admit that and say that and just taunt people, especially maybe those people's families found out about what this meant, I mean, I'm pretty sure they did, that is insane, and that is crazy, and that is just so downright wrong. But anyways, moving on from my opinion on this. Now we move on to the third case, and this one is different. However, I'll get to why it's connected to the Zodiac in a moment. So in Napa Valley, California, September 27th, 1969. So just a little over a month after, like about 6 weeks after this letter, in Napa, California, in the Napa Valley area, a couple was having a picnic in the valley, you know, as you do. And they were bound and stabbed with a knife. It was, I believe they said, I forgot how big the knife was, but the killer had a gun, a flashlight, and a knife. And I'll put up the picture of the killer that was here. And they were able to like kind of figure out what he looked like because he had the symbol of the Zodiac. Now you can say, oh, it can be someone that's so sick that they want to recreate something similar to a serial killer that's famous. However, on the side of the victim, the male victim's car, which by the way, the victims were 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard, who was stabbed 10 times. That's insane to me that someone can do that. And like, the only reason why they even found the both of them was because a fisherman heard the screams of what they were going through, and that's insane to me. And the other victim was the male. He was 22. His name was Brian Hartnell. And the Zodiac literally on the side of his car, like of Brian's car, there was 3 different dates, 2 of which were the dates of the prior 2 cases that I discussed, and the next one was the date of September 27th, 1969 with by knife at the bottom. I'll post the photo, and that's what really made it clear that this is a Zodiac case. Now, usually serial killers, I don't feel like they change their ammo, like what they do, like their ritual. I know that sounds crazy, but like they may use a similar like gun, you know? It might not be the same gun, but to go from a gun to a knife really confuses me, and maybe just feels like he's smart enough to like get away with it, even though he can literally claim to be the one who did it. It just blows my mind. I mean, whoever this is, I'm not saying it's good what he did, but has to be someone so intelligent to be able to do this and still to this day not be known, like not be identified. That's insane to me. Now I'm gonna play a clip from the documentary which kind of summarizes a lot of what went on, like describing, and just watch what I'm about to play.
Her companion, 20-year-old Brian Hartnell, survives and tells Detective Narlow his story.
I kept trying to talk to him.
He said that Cecilia was kind of startled, and Brian said, "What's the matter?" She says, "Well, there's a man standing over there, and he's staring at us." And then a little while later, she heard another noise, and that's when she saw the suspect come out from behind a tree. She looked up and she says, "Oh my God, there he is again, he's wearing a mask."
The man who approaches them is about 5'10". He's wearing gloves, carrying a gun in one hand, and has a long bayonet-style knife at his side. Over his head, the man wears a black executioner-style hood. On his chest is the crossed circle, the sign of the Zodiac. The masked man uses pre-cut lengths of rope to bind his victims. Then he pulls out the knife.
And then he supposedly said, "Well, you know I'm going to have to kill you." And Brian is supposedly have said, "Well, kill me first, because I couldn't stand to see Cecilia hurt."
After talking to Hartnell, Narlow realizes he is not dealing with your run-of-the-mill murderer. Clues left at the crime scene underscore this point. Scrawled on the side of Brian Hartnell's car is a message from a man who now calls himself the Zodiac.
It had the sign of the Zodiac, the circle with the cross emblem. Then he had the date, September 27th, 1969. Underneath that, he had by knife, which naturally attracted our attention because it was directly related to the crime itself, and he was taking credit for it.
Also scrawled on the side of the car, 12/20/68 and 7/4/69, the dates of the 2 Vallejo attacks.
Okay, so from that clip, it's pretty much the gist of everything. And I want to kind of go back to his characteristics, the Zodiac's characteristics, because I think it's very important to, when you talk about serial killers and you talk about a lot of their, just how did they do it? Why did they do it? You know, the motive is really what personally I am interested in, and what went through I'm obsessed with serial killer minds because it's very complex when you think about it. It's very much like, I mean, everyone has their own individual mind, but a lot of serial killers understand they're serial killers, which is why when they went to go kind of understand the mind of a serial killer, they got a call from Ted Bundy, the guy who literally killed so many people. It's insane, and he's a very famous serial killer. I mean, they made a movie on him, you know? So they pretty much figured out that the Zodiac is he's a pathological psycho killer. And he's very egotistical. He feels like he's above everyone else, and he'll taunt people. And I feel like if this case happened now, the best suspects would be the first, like the people that are standing around, the bystanders. Because I feel like if you're so smart in what you're doing, you're going to make it obvious without actually making it obvious. You're going to push yourself to go to that extra mile of like actually sticking around to see. At least least personally, that's what I feel. Now, there are a lot of possible suspects on this. I'll leave the links to a lot of the videos that talk about that down below as well. And one of them being Arthur Lee Allen, or Leigh Allen. And his case is very interesting just because there are a lot of circumstantial evidence that convicts him for being the Zodiac killer. So one of them being the fact that he was there around the time that all of these things were happening in that specific area. He also confessed to a friend, at least that's what the friend says, around the time of January the 1st of 1969, that he had the desire to kill and use the name Zodiac. Now, this was around the time, this was before the letters came in. And when the letters came in, that's when they started using the Zodiac symbol. So it kind of makes sense in a way, and it's one of those things that is really kind of crazy. And what's also interesting is that Allen also was convicted and was arrested for basically having lewd sex acts, I'm using the actual terms, lewd sex acts upon a 12-year-old boy. That is insane to me. And this happened in 1974. I wonder if it's really him, but I don't know for sure, just because he's done interviews where he's like, no, it was never me, no, I'm not the Zodiac, and like he's in jail saying. So I don't really know what to think of that. Now, there are other possibilities. I have my laptop here just so I don't butcher the names or details. I don't want to mess up the details on this. So in 2007, a man named Dennis Kaufman claimed that his stepfather, Jack Terrence, I think that's how you pronounce it, was the Zodiac. So this man, or young man I should say, I don't know how old he is when he did this, when he claimed this, but he said that his stepfather, Jack, could possibly be the Zodiac. And the reason for this being that he turned over several items to the FBI that could be potential evidence, in the sense of it being, he has a hood similar to the one worn by the Zodiac. And what's crazy is that the FBI did a DNA analysis on the items and on Kaufman and cleared him because it was inconclusive in 2010. Now, inconclusive, I don't know if that would technically be complete innocence, just because it's inconclusive. It's not no and yes, it's maybe. So it's a possibility, but I'm wondering why like all of a sudden he wanted to bring this up. Just curious. And then in 2009, this case is a little different just because we don't know the exact name of the person. We just know the person that this person came to. It's complicated, but pretty much a former lawyer, I should say, named Robert Tarbox, said that in the early 1970s, a merchant mariner, don't really understand why, say that walked into his office and confessed to him that he was the Zodiac killer. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but if someone just comes in and just says that, like, you're gonna obviously be like shocked, but also like, really, like, what makes you like, because there are sick people out there that decide that, oh, I'm gonna go claim to be this person, that person. There are serial killers, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you want that? But there are crazy people out there. So pretty much there were several books on the Zodiac, and what's crazy is that an author of one of the books, Robert Graysmith, butcher people's names, sorry, said that the story is entirely plausible. I'm sorry, I'm like slouching. I'm sorry. So Robert Graysmith said that the story that Tarbox told could be entirely plausible because, you know, serial killers, like we said, he literally called the police and told them that he was the killer, and it's possible that he stuck around after, you know, he had done that to people and had done that to his victims, and the police showed up and he could have been there, and we just don't know. Now, another one that's pretty interesting to me personally is that this is kind of interesting because it's a journalist, and his name, I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm just gonna call him Richard, and I'll put his name like actually on the screen. And during the time of the murders, he worked as a Good Times, a San Francisco newspaper. He worked for a newspaper. I mean, he looked similar to the sketch that was provided of the Zodiac, and his voice, according to a police dispatcher called Nancy Slover, she claimed that that Richard's voice matches the Zodiac. So that's pretty interesting to me personally, and that makes him a suspect, because if she thinks that his voice matches the Zodiac, then that's entirely possible that he could be the Zodiac killer. Okay, now the next one, there's one about the Black Dahlia, which I found interesting. Okay, so this is also an interesting fact. I am obsessed with the Black Dahlia case. If you watch the show with Chris Pines, I really like that show just because it's about the Black Dahlia in a lot of ways, because there's like, if you look into it, there's a connection. Anyways, if you want me to do a video on the Black Dahlia, which is one of my favorite cases when it comes to the type of case that it is, then let me know down below or on social media. I get a lot of suggestions not down below, like no one really comments on my videos, but I mostly get like comments on my videos from like social media, like when you guys message me on social media. So yeah, anyways, by the way, check all my social medias down below, so if you want to stay in touch with like just what I'm up to and like what videos I plan on posting, when I'm posting, all that. So like I was saying, if you watch the show, you know of George Hodel, who was convicted of the Black Dahlia murder, and aka Elizabeth Short, who, if you watch a lot of like scary, like I watched a video recently and it was in the hotel, the Biltmore Hotel, I think it is, and that's where the Black Dahlia was found. So what's crazy is that Hodel argued a circumstantial case that his father was also the Zodiac killer. So not only was he the Black Dahlia killer, his son says that he believes that his father, who was the Black Dahlia killer, is also the Zodiac killer. Now, I don't know how much of this I believe, just because the MOs are totally different. The murders are completely different. They're not just, you know, what was used. If you know about the Black Dahlia, you know that her body was not the way that you would find the body of the Zodiac killer. So I just don't necessarily believe that Hodel could have been the Zodiac killer, but you never know. Maybe after, you know, there was a lot of suspects, and because after he was caught as the Black Dahlia's killer, as killing Elizabeth Short, maybe he was terrified of, you know, them finding out that he's also the Zodiac. I don't know about that one. Let me know what you guys think. I don't believe that he is. I just don't see it, but you never know. You never know. That is it for this video. I hope you guys found it a little interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this case. Also suggest cases down below, because I love watching these videos and I've always wanted to film one of these, so I figured I would try it out. I don't know if you guys like it, but let me know down below if you have any suggestions on cases, because a lot of the cases I follow a lot of like crime, overall murder cases. I find them very fascinating, just because to think someone else could harm another human being is crazy. Like, it's very crazy to me, the mind of a serial killer. Like, that to me is so interesting. And I even mentioned like being fascinated with like serial killer murders, and I mentioned that it's weird because I know it's kind of weird if you aren't into it and you aren't one of those like detective sleuths on the internet, you wouldn't really get it. So my parents were like, why? Like, why do you watch all of this? So yeah, I just always liked mysteries and murders and all that. Like, Nancy Drew was like my favorite series growing up, and Robert Patterson, his Murder House one is interesting. By the way, let me know if I should film the H.H. Holmes Murder House video, because that I find so interesting. So let me know down below if you guys want to see that, or let me know on social media, because that seems to be the place that everyone wants to tell me stuff on. Don't know why. But yeah, I will see you guys next week, Wednesday, with a new video. I'm not sure exactly what video it will be, because I pre-recorded a few videos and this is also being pre-recorded. So yeah, let me know down below, and if you guys want to see any videos, make sure to follow me on all my social medias. They're also down below, as well as at the end of this video. And make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well, and turn on that post notification, because you want to be notified when I post a video, because YouTube is a little weird with the subscription box. That's okay though, because we'll make it through. And also make sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or if you like this case, or you want me to make more videos like this, because I actually really enjoyed making this, because I love talking about overall mystery and murder. Alright, I will see you guys next week, and bye!